to talk about Blaxploitation, and probably everybody here has something that they can talk about that. So let me show you how I started my morning. It's weird, I know. Let me
But how about all the jobs that the Black actors and whatnot had during that period of time?
There's something about that. I don't know everything about that. I was just, so we're going to talk about Blaxploitation, the history, not necessarily the history of Blaxploitation, but this is one of the slides that Judy sent me. Of course, you remember Superfly.
Yep.
Superfly. I think though, before Superfly, there was Shaft.
Shaft.
Yeah. And then
don't forget Sweet Sweetback now.
Oh, that started
That's
it.
A classic. Classic.
That started it all.
Classic.
You know, I didn't see that movie Sweet Sweetback until 20 or 25 years later. I absolutely hated that movie.
I still haven't seen it.
It was an awesome movie.
Really?
Yep.
Okay, so and then you know, Blackula, you know, Jim Marshall was his, you know, almost like Shakespearean actor, you know, his voice, and I mean, he's anyway. And then I never saw this one, Black Shampoo, and I wasn't. I know that probably came out after the movie Shampoo. I would imagine, you know. But anyway, so this is how it started for me. So this is my friend. You know, I don't think I'm betraying a confidence because this was on Facebook in public. So this started it out. He says, I remember in the 70s, the Devils put Superfly, then boys started wanting to be pimps. Yeah. That's how it started. And then somebody wrote, you mean the Mac? and then he said, don't know, I never watched any of them.
Wow.
And then this person, I was in a discussion with this person here, Reese Trey, and he said Superfly was a drug dealer. And then, you know, oh, I never could have watched those movies. And then, you know, he's gonna, you know, then, okay, the banter goes out. And then this is when I came in. So I came in and I said, Superfly and the Mac messed us up, you know, and put a sad face. And then Ali wrote, he says, I'm so glad you see what I see. I need to know I'm not the only one. And then I said, I went to junior high with the Ward brothers' children. And he said, who are they? I'm going to stop there. Does anybody know what I'm talking about when I say the Ward brothers' children?
I don't know.
Familiar.
I think it's an Oakland thing, and I think you would have to be like my age to know what I'm talking about. So when the movie The Mac opens up, it shows a picture of this guy. He's dressed like a pimp, and it says, in memory of Frank Ward. Frank Ward was a part, him and his brothers, they were referred to as the Ward brothers. And they were big time pimps and players in Oakland. And you know, like when they do the players ball, that was something that really happened over on East 23rd. And actually the Ward brothers are in that scene. But anyway, Frank Ward was assassinated. He was in his girlfriend's car and somebody came up and shot him. And then Max Julian ended up playing the role of Goldie, but Frank Ward was originally supposed to play that. So that's what I meant when I said I went to school with some of those guys' kids, you know, some a year older, some, and so Ali writes, who are they? And then I don't know what this person's saying. And then they said, ha ha ha. And I'm not sure what they mean. But then, okay, Kamau, he goes over and just says, BS, Superfly, and the Mac didn't mess us up. Weak minds messed us up.
Good point.
You know, and okay, and then I answered Ali, which what I told you. And then I responded to Kamau. And for those of you that don't know, Kamau is like a great drummer, African drummer here in the Sacramento area. He's been drumming at our events and our church for years. And so that's who Brother Kamau is. He's a very conscious brother. So I responded to him. I said, I agree, but those movies aided in the process. The soundtrack was a part of it too. And I think that's what Brother Shango alluded to.
Yeah.
And then somebody clowned me. The devil made me do it. Defense. People get exposed to what they are when the enemy calls, but we are all accountable for our own actions. Some brothers who became that changed, but many never gravitated into pimping and drug dealing. And then I wrote, no question, you know, but from my observation growing up in Oakland as a teenager at the time those movies came out, one who witnessed the consequences of Black people devolving from Panthers to pimps, those Blaxploitation movies and others helped sway young minds and our people in general from revolution to devolution. And, okay, and then this person said, how did the movies mess us up? And then, okay, this it gets back to the soundtrack. Also, the soundtracks were beautiful works of art from Curtis Mayfield and Willie Hutch, no question. And then Ali, who started all this, wrote Superfly and the Mac messed up little boys and young teens. I was 10 years old then. I remember the effect the movie had on us gang youngsters, and it was not only weak minds. And then I responded to Reese Trey with these articles, and then they clown me about that. And you know, copying and pasting articles means, you know, gives a question mark. Were they destructive due to personal things you saw, experienced, or what somebody wrote? So I did respond to that. I said the reason I did that is because your question, the subject has been researched and discussed many times regarding that era of our history. The destructiveness of those times were personally witnessed. Where I grew up, it was literally a block away from where the Panthers held their rallies. I saw our community peers and others go from Panthers to pimps overnight, and it had always been my opinion that the Blaxploitation movies, Superfly and the Mac in particular, were instrumental in changing the direction of our community. Just my opinion. And then Kamau talked about, you know, his growing up in Hartford, Connecticut, his experience, and you know. So anyway, that's how we we got into all of that. That's why we're talking about today, because initially we're going to talk about the movie, the Ma'afa. There was a movie about Ma'afa, but because that was not quite ready, this is why we're talking about this now. And so these are, oh, you know what? I also went to school with Fred Williamson's son. We were on the same track. I went to school with Fred Williamson Jr. So Pam Grier, Fred Williamson, Richard Roundtree. What's this brother? He has an African name. I can't think of his name, but he was in a lot of movies at that time. That brother there with the cigar.
Right, cigar, right.
Yeah.
Don't recognize.
Well, he was actually in Blackula. You know, he's the one that figured out who Blackula was, and you know, actually was instrumental in, you know, killing Blackula forcing Blackula to walk out into the sun. You know, of course, Max Julien as the Max Julien was in a few movies. A really good movie called Thomasine and Bushrod. How many saw? Okay, I'm going to stop now and see just to get a temperature on how people are doing. Do you want to end this now, or shall we keep going? All right, anyone?
But economically speaking, look at the number of actors that were employed in comparison to how many Blacks now in films. That's what I'm looking at.
That's the point. That's the point. Okay. Amadi has his hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's kind of complicated, like a lot of these things are. You know, as the brother just said, you know, you can look at the economic aspects, and you know, because I mean, I have mixed emotions about it. I lived through it as well, and you know, it doesn't mean that it could have. You know, it was vilified. It was vilified. It was attacked, but part of it was not because. Just look at the rap music and how we understand that the rap, you know, the people who control that industry directed it toward gangster rap as opposed to conscious rap, right?
Right.
And
Yes.
so they pretty much don't care about negative images and you know, energy going toward our community. But what it really was that they didn't like that money going to our community. They didn't like the economic aspects of these movies. And because they were Blaxploitation, doesn't necessarily mean that it was going to stay that way. It was part of our expression. And so I just think that a lot of it was economical, like brother Shango was saying. I think a lot of this stuff was economic, and then they got a lot of Black people to buy into this idea of Blaxploitation. But you know, there's a lot of negative content toward Black people, and that's not attacked. But the one that was involved with us and us, you know, benefiting and getting some profit out of it, then that was attacked. So I just think that, you know, it's a nuance to it, and you know, I just think that there was some insidious forces that ended it. I'm not saying it was full positive, but I feel that it was really, you know, I think it was the economic piece that really ended it. I guess I'll just say that.
Okay, that's a good point. So, Keedy, let's get you in before you have to go. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. I will have to leave in a second. You can hear me good?
Yes.
I'm going to share with you. I have written very extensively about what did take place. I'm going to share with you 2 paragraphs. These appeared in first my book, Mind Control, and then later I put out the book, Missing Assets, Cultural, Biological, and Psychological Origins of Infertility. And here's what those who opposed us were, the framework that they were working from. This may take me a minute to read these 2 paragraphs. In other words, for population control to succeed, a great deal more must be done than to merely establish family planning centers and to provide surreptitious funding for local advocacy campaigns. An entire spectrum of variables affecting the desire to have children must be influenced, from basic economics and government programs to family relations, personal expectations, lifestyle, cultural tradition, concepts of land sharing and private ownership, wealth production systems, ethical standards, and even religious beliefs. Taboos must be breached. The bonds that unite family and community must be undermined, and sufficient disruption must occur to literally disorient the targeted communities and make them vulnerable to the imposition of external cultural forces. One more paragraph. Nothing can be left to chance. To be effective, an intervention in the media must be thorough, careful, persistent, and extravagant. It must be capable of penetrating the minds of the audience at the subconscious as well as the conscious level. It must systematically create an illusion on a massive scale, at the same time remaining discreet enough to give the impression that the false doctrine represents a spontaneous change in the target society itself. That is from Missing Assets.
So what's the bottom line on that, Brother Keating?
We've been had, we've been tricked, we've been misled. We were playing in a game, we were playing checkers in a chess game. So the bottom line is that's called social engineering. Now, I have all of these formulas. I've studied those processes, I've studied their apparatus for many years, and I was taught by one of the best teachers and operants in this whole sector. Elizabeth Leon Gonsalvo taught me. So the bottom line becomes, we have the insights, we have the tools, we have the apparatus. We are challenged to ask the question, can we survive this game?
Well, how does it relate to Blaxploitation, though, Keating? I'm just trying to connect all the dots. Blaxploitation
Did you hear
movies.
the parts of what I did you hear the part that I said that interventions in the media, cultural taboos, and family bonds, all of those must reach? Did you hear me say those line
I heard you say
items?
that, but I guess I'm not as fast in the brain as you are.
Well, you have my books.
You know, Edie,
I'm
this
gonna read it again. Okay.
is actually something that should be just livicated at, you know, a Wednesday livicated where you just present this and we can break it down, because you know what you just read was very heavy, profound, and it wasn't easy to absorb just hearing that. And so if we can schedule a time, I know that Wednesdays is not such a good time for you, but maybe we can get a particular Wednesday or a particular day where we could just focus on this subject, reading from what you had, you know, analyzing what you had just presented before us. But I'm glad that you were able to get on before you were able to go.
Could I? Greetings.
Okay, we're not letting this person. I'm putting her on mute right now. Right,
Greetings, everyone. I do apologize. I just was hoping I could say something before Keating leaves. I think it's such a great idea, Minister Imhotep, and this is Sister Judy. I am so much on the same page as Keating. We go way back anyway. But I understand, and I think it's so much more than economics. I mentioned on the last week's conversation that, you know, I look at it as weapons of mass destruction are aimed at us in so many different ways, and it's so strategic. Just reading The Destruction of Black Civilization, we took a class in that my partner and I a few years ago, and just that alone lets you know just how diabolical and how, you know, just how devious and how many angles they'll go to keep us down always on and I just think Black exploitation movies, they really were empowering us in a lot of ways, even though there were negative, you know, many negative images. But I'll stop there because I'm just joining you and I don't want to, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
You know, Judy, I have a spot for you, and so it deals with some of the pictures that you sent. So stay on the line. Minister Shango, go ahead with your question.
You know, I get so tired of how hard we beat up on ourselves when we talk about various things. Well, let me just tell you about my upbringing. I grew up during the 50s, and I was watching movies that was pumped out during the 40s. If you understand what went down in the 40s, if you think the Blaxploitation movies are raw, let's look at all the Jimmy Cagney movies or the Edward G. Robinson movies. I mean, all these white folks that were gangsters, and they were glorified gangsters in the white community. even if you fast forward into the doggone The Godfather. What is that but glorifying of the family? But the family was a mob family killing people. And we looked at that as being
You're right there.
drama. So
Congo,
we
Congo.
beat ourselves up too much.
Hold up, hold
The
up.
gangster movies during the 40s were real raw if you looked at them.
Let me ask, you mentioned The Godfather. There is a scene in The Godfather when he calls all the mob bosses together. And they are discussing. The reason why The Godfather, they attempted to kill him is because he didn't want to introduce drugs. He didn't want to do drugs, and it was like he was forced to do drugs. And this guy got up and he says, I think it's an insomnia, which is Italian for something really bad. Right. And he says, I want to keep it respectable. I don't want it around schools. I don't want it around children. He says, in my city, we keep it in the darker communities.
Yes.
Animals anyway, so let them lose their souls.
Yes.
That was said, when that movie came out, 1971, 1970. Yes. Then, every time the Godfather is mentioned, they glorified, assassinating all those people. Yeah. And we took over from there. Look at movies like Black Caesar and other movies. We continue that process.
But if I could just real quick, because I know I said something.
Go ahead. Yes.
I know I had said something before, but the point that I'm making, and I feel like I'm resonating with Brother Shango, is that, don't just attack the Black producers when you have all this going on. They didn't call that whitesploitation when they were making those white gangster movies and all that. There's a lot of negative elements, even as Brother T.D. Awadu alluded to, just in terms of Hollywood, just in terms of this whole genre. With how the Jewish producers, assassinate the images of Black people. So it's like, but you picked on the ones that the Black people were profiting from, and so in other words, you cherry picked, in my opinion. And so it's like, let's wipe it all out. Yes. But then don't just attack the areas where we're making some money on. Right. Not that it's we can evolve. And the point I'm making is this, it's self-expression, and we learn and we grow and we evolve. And so we can, we didn't have to destroy that and call that Blaxploitation. We could have talked about improving it and changing the perspective of it and creating a new narrative rather than destroy the whole thing in the name of Blaxploitation. That's the issue that I have with this whole thing.
Amen.
All right. I'll shave, brother.
If I could get one word in, I will have to leave here very shortly. I'm kind of sad of it's kind of saddening from what I'm hearing from my brothers, because I'll be very, very honest. I have to look at myself in the mirror. Black man, you raised 3 daughters. How do you defend your 3 daughters in a world becoming ever more hostile? It's not the producers, what was his name, Mario Pucci, or whoever wrote the book about the Godfathers. They're not the ones that are the greatest danger to my 3 daughters. The reality is that my 3 daughters are in the greatest danger because African American culture has hit the self-destruct button. And on so many fronts, the Black male, the Black man has lost his backbone. There was a time when Black men knew there was a threat to the family and community, and they would grab their shotgun knowing they may very well lose their life, but they had to show the community that they cared enough about the community's future that they were prepared to lose it all. So at this particular point, the evidence, the data is there. We are losing it all. I have opted to leave the country and go and live in another part of the world, but I don't want to leave my daughters behind in a world where the greatest threats to their lives and their safety are unfortunately at the hands of males of our own noble race. And that's a fact.
Right.
Could I piggyback?
You can
Before,
veggie back, you can dovetail, but we don't pig around
oh
here.
wait, Nick, I'm so sorry. You know who I'm talking to, Petey, Chef Petey. Please, yes, pardon me and forgive me for that. What's the word? But anyway, what I wanted to say, Brother Keedy, you are so on it, because I remember, and I shared this with a group of people recently, my father, who, and I'm just saying this just to establish, it didn't have anything to do with professions, but my father was a well-known high school educator, had a master's degree, but when students at Tuskegee were about to integrate a white church downtown, I can remember I was a little girl, but my father was leaving, and I said, Daddy, I want to go. And he said, baby, there's going to be some trouble downtown today. And he said, you can go, but when I tell you to put your head down. So I got in the car, and he had this big pistol in the center of his car, because, the parents, they didn't play, and they didn't take, lots of people in Alabama. But the bottom line is, I do feel as if our Black people, we have just, we're not soldiers anymore. We are really, I don't even know what's happened. We have punked out, and the people, the baby boomers, in my opinion, which I, might be one of, but
Hey,
we dropped the ball. We didn't pass the torch, and our people are not revolutionary enough. We're not able to take action. We analyze problems, but we're not the people that get out now and protect our community. That's why what's going on happens. That's just my thoughts.
And Baba, Imhotep, I don't know how to raise my hand on my phone, but this is along the line that I was thinking also. If our Black women, mothers, grandmothers, aunts were elevated, then this would have been difficult I'm talking about the Ward brothers and the pimping kind of thing that, excuse me, we talked about earlier. If our Black women were elevated, that would have been difficult. It would be difficult for you to want to put your daughter, your aunt, your sister, on the street. So this goes back to the very beginning of the whole conversation. If our women were elevated, the pimping thing would not have taken off, and it wouldn't still be prevalent today like it is. If our women were elevated, we wouldn't be talking all under their clothes, something for me to poke on and all that kind of stuff. It just wouldn't go over. Like Judy just said, my father said, no. My father knew, and I knew, that he would put his life on the line for me. That was very clear. So no man could tell me to degrade myself. That's it.
I was just going to add to that. I always say, and I love this proverb, no nation can rise any higher than its women. That speaks a lot for the conditions we're in, but you cannot, in my mind, take the responsibility off of the man, because women being pimped, I think, is not so much a woman issue as it is a man issue.
Well, this is one of the things that we're talking about. And what I'm hearing, if I may, is that, okay, on the one side, the Blaxploitation movie, if I may use that phrase, there could have been a positive side had we controlled the industry, and we could channel, for instance, okay, how about this movie, 5 on the Black side, 5 on the Black hand side. Remember that?
I remember that one.
Yeah.
So that was Glenn Turman, and the woman that played Mrs. Brooks, she ended up being Bill Cosby's mother on the Bill Cosby show, and that was a very positive movie.
Well, that was a comedy, right?
It was a comedy, but it had a lot of
Positive.
positiveness. Movies like Cornbread Earl and Me. Remember that movie, Cornbread
But
Early?
I never
Yeah.
got the impression that those were considered Black exploitation movies.
Those were in that same genre. So you had, so in addition to having the Mac and Superfly, you also had Buck and the Preacher.
But maybe I didn't, I will admit I wasn't here for the beginning, so I don't understand the exact origin. I'll do my own, research since I was late. But I always got the impression when I first started hearing the terminology of Black exploitation movies, that seemed to me to come from more conscious revolutionary Black people who were offended by the negative influences that the negative movies, not the positive Black movies. There were only certain movies that I thought were put into the category of Black exploitation movies. But I'm not saying I'm correct.
There was a wide swath, and all these movies came out together.
They came out together, but I didn't know they were identified as the ones that were labeled Black exploitation. I always thought the Max, Superfly, because they glorified drug pushers and pimps and Mac, and those movies had influence. That's what I was telling you. I could make a testament because those movies definitely had influence in a negative way on my life, because for me that was exciting to me, wanting to have that kind of boyfriend.
Let me get back to one of the things that I'm looking at here, and that is I'm trying to find a cure for cooning. Okay, somebody mentioned this about hip hop, and I saw this meme a few years back, and it says only 3 bosses in hip hop: Warner Brother Music Group, Sony Music Entertainment, Universal Music Group. Hip hop is being used as a dumbing down agent against Black to keep them ignorant and in a docile state of mind. And in the same way, I think those movies were, but all those movies were joined together. They all some were positive and some were negative. If you think of movies like Claudine, James Earl Jones, Diana Carroll, I think Lawrence Hilton Jacobs, a young Lawrence Hilton Jacobs is in that movie. So I mean, that's the other side, and I think that's what Amadi is referring to. That and Shango is that they're saying, I don't think that they're glorifying Superfly and the Mac, but they're saying that the other side to it is movies like the ones I just mentioned, but there's one I'm trying to think of. But anyway,
there was Uptown Saturday Night. Remember that one? And
yeah, Muhammad Ali played himself. The Greatest. All of these movies came out at the.
But Minister Imhotep, I'll just have to do my own research and come back, and we could, finish the conversation. But just because the movies came out in the 70s at the same time period, I have never, and this is probably the first time as you saying it and hearing it in this conversation, I have never heard of Cornbread Earl and Me and these positive Uptown Saturday. I've never heard of those as being labeled as Black exploitation films.
But those movies went down when Blaxploitation is the same way like with disco. Like when that genre went down, a lot of our Black movie making capacities went down with it. That's what the point I'm saying. We attacked the system, or we attacked the process instead of looking at, it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it that really determines everything. Like 90% of your of your life is how you respond. 10% is what happens, and 90% is how you respond to it. We could have responded to it in a different way than attacking it and totally wiping it out, because in wiping it out, we lost our foothold in the movie making. That's the point I'm just trying to say.
But
Yes.
who is the we? Who you say
Black people, black
who are the
producers,
we that wiped out, who
actors.
stopped the movie, who stopped the stopped black films? I'm not going to say black exploitation films, but black films that were made during the 70s and mostly the 70s, but the 80s or whatever period you all are referring to. Who is the we that stopped our movies and interrupted us?
It was probably the producers, but they used a lot of they used the, they used the energy of black people attacking it, and it's under the label of Blaxploitation to actually um, marginalize our black movie making capacities and our foothold in the industry, is my opinion.
I'm gonna have to just for my own personal. I don't want to slow us down from wherever we're going next, Minister Imhotep. I'm gonna challenge that. I don't believe that we've attacked all of our movies. I only heard about Superfly, The Mac, a few other movies that I heard were under the category of black exploitation, and they were considered black exploitation because they were negatively influencing black people with the images that were not positive, and it had a great influence on people's dress and cars they were driving and some of the mindset, obviously. But I don't remember all of our movies being under attack, so I'll have to just do my personal research, and we come back when Keedy comes back. That would be, nice to add to the conversation.
Our movies are attacked.
Excuse me.
How about
But I
Cleopatra? How about
I-
Cleopatra?
I agree
Well,
with your
that one too.
perspective.
Yeah. Well, I'll lump that one in too.
Okay, I put you all on mute because Sister Zarita had her hand up, and Sister Zarita, please go ahead. And
Thank you, Lieutenant. So as I listen to the conversation, what comes to my mind are the books, that the expressions of African people, whether it's through filmmaking, whether it's through writing, whether it's through music. One of the things that I truly believe is that, and I agree with Shango and the other brother, we have to allow ourselves to make mistakes. And by that, I mean, not in a callous way. What is our standard? And so we have to have a standard. So I'm not gonna, what's happening right now is I look at the genre of rap, of hip hop, the genre is being assailed. And that the genre is not the genre that's negative. When I think of Public Enemy, I think of Queen Latifah. When I think of my sisters, Salt and Pepper and Spinderella, it's we have to learn as a people to set a standard, and then when we find ourselves deviating from that, speak out on it without annihilating what we're doing. And right now, that's what I see. I see we don't, like, for example, we don't allow ourselves to acknowledge that we were under seizure, that the war on us that was waged with chemical warfare through crack cocaine, with the gun warfare through COINTELPRO and other programs against the Panthers, against our resistance movement, against our human rights movement. And so we took a hit, but we can come back. And I don't think we allow, Black people don't this and Black people don't that. We make mistakes, we're human. And I'm not trying to oversimplify it. There's some things we need to do. We need to be able to protect ourselves. That's a big one. We have to protect ourselves, and there's many ways to do it, but we have to. That father with the gunshot, the shotgun, oh, that's real, and it's relevant today. And we need to look at it and be able to look at it in a way where, what mistakes did we make? How can we correct them? We need to have an attitude like Nesu Shabaka had when he had to go back and he had to look at the Shabaka stone and see, gather from that knowledge and use it during the 25th dynasty. And so I just really feel we need to be able to allow ourselves to do that. I don't accept the term Black exploitation. I don't. Thank you.
All right, Minister, thank you, Sister Zarita. Minister Shango, go ahead.
I would also add that depending on one's moral value is how you could weigh people one way or the other. Now, when I was growing up again during the 50s, some people who didn't have all the good moral values were the number writers. Well, then I don't know what was going on the West Coast, but on the East Coast, those number writers, they were the ones who funded a lot of people being able to go to college. They funded a number of people being able to buy stores because the banks wouldn't give you money. These same number writers helped you get a house. So on the one hand, culturally, they were not the creme de la creme, but yet and still, with the money that they had, they helped the community. So I don't gauge a person on the value system of the euros. I gauge them on what they do in the community in a positive way. That's my statement. I'm through.
Okay, all right. You know, I had no idea this was such an explosive topic. So this is really good. So, Sister Judy, you're coming up now. I have you sent me these pictures, and oh wait a minute, I didn't share them yet. Let me.
And I'll tell you, I'm on my phone. I'm here.
Can you
seeing
see?
my,
Can you see?
let me see if I can see them.
Okay.
I
hold
see
on.
you.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, I see it now.
Okay, so you sent these two pictures, and I found these very interesting, and perhaps this is one of the things, you know, slightly what Minister Amadi is alluding to. This first one, Blaxploitation films saved Hollywood. Can you discuss that? And then you also sent me Charles Woods, AKA the professor, talks about the real reason behind Blaxploitation. So can you address those two topics?
Well, actually, I cannot. I can attempt to, because I shared those videos with you in case you wanted to, when you told me the topic.
I didn't get
in
them.
case in case these were videos you might want to glance through.
I didn't get the videos. I saw the pictures.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I was sending you videos. I sent you about 5 YouTube videos.
Got the
Yeah.
Robert.
But anyway, I mean, I can just make my comment about it. I didn't know you were going to ask me to discuss it, but Blaxploitation films saved Hollywood. I can only go by that topic of what that would mean to me. I mean, it was a chance for us to bring in our talents and skills and our script and content, and, you know, kind of bring a whole new, a whole new industry in under that was focused on our community. But what I do think is that when I think about the films that I went to see that were, you know, considered the ones that were really considered Black exploitation films, the reaction from my community in the theater, the young people that were watching these movies, it really empowered you. We were just totally empowered by these movies. We felt like we were, many times people were sitting in the audience, hit Whitey, knock him out. You know, it just made us feel strong and made us. So I think the movies were killed. If anything, I haven't done any research on this topic, Minister Imhotep, you know, until I heard you were going to do it tonight. It's one of the areas I'm extremely interested in. And I've worked with Tom, you know, had a course with Tom Burrell on brainwash, and that was negative images and marketing. But I'm very interested in negative images and how they affect us and what's going on today. But I would just say that I could see that the powers that be would probably have felt, you know, they made Godfather and all their movies of gangsters. But when they saw us make that, that was immediate threat. I'm thinking more like Keaty, that these were all different weapons. You know, they always have weapons of mass destruction against us, as the Sister Sarita just said, but they realized that was empowering us to think and to have more courage and to gain more of that mindset, that mentality to be godfathers. And, so I think they realized that was a destructive thing. They needed to figure out ways to dissolve that, because they could see that would empower us with a whole new set of, rebellion and being rebels and activists and militants. So that's what I can say.
Okay, thank you. I didn't mean to go.
And what was the second topic? I mean, the second
So there
film was
so
the real reason
yeah, the real
behind Black exploitation.
Charles Wood.
Again, yeah, that was the second picture you mentioned you wanted me to discuss. And the only thing I could say, I have not done enough research, in all honesty, because I'm really trying to understand how this terminology, and you probably mentioned it at the beginning, but I'm here for the first time seeing my grandson, and very first time minutes ago. And so I wasn't able to get in on time. However, that's something I'm not sure if that term came from the white people or from Black activists who were against the movies that were being these negative images, and how they were affecting our communities negatively. What was the origin?
I believe that term was a term that originated with the NAACP and groups like that. I believe that's where that term came from. And really, I went to a lot of those movies. At first, my father would take me, and then, he just felt like, I guess, hey, he's 14, he's 15, you're on your own. And I was there at there was a theater, it's called the Roxy, and then there was another one called the Lux, and that's where all those movies were. I also saw, all of the martial arts movies, all the Bruce Lee movies, Fist of Fury, Enter the Dragon, all those movies were happening at the same time too.
Well, as I mentioned, the mindset of the people when we were watching movies like that, and the audience, they were just, well, it is a part of where I'm from too. We really didn't take any crap from white folks. And, no matter, and it was a college town, lots of professors, lot of VA hospital, the second largest in the world, many physicians, and mostly just a high ratio of professional people. But maybe because everybody was at a certain level, or you could see every level in the Black community, they just didn't take shit from white people, and we were empowered. So when we saw it, it was like, it just helped to fuel our greatness and how great we were. And then the gangsters were beaten up or whatever. It was always kick that, I hate to say it like that, but it was, that's how, these movies empowered us into feeling a certain kind of, not in a positive way perhaps, but it was something that made us feel strong and rebellious and armored with, we had a lot of pride and we weren't taking crap. So these movies were always just fueling our fire on Sundays.
Okay, we have a couple of hands, but before we get to Shango and Brother Damani, happy birthday, Brother Damani.
Happy birthday, Brother Damani.
This was put in the chat to me. Blaxploitation is an ethnic subgenre of the exploitation film that emerged in the United States during the early 70s. The term is, I can't pronounce that word, portmanteau of portmanteau of the words Black, and exploitation was coined in August 1972 by Eunice Griffin, the president of the Beverly Hills NAACP, Hollywood NAACP branch. He claimed that the genre was proliferating offenses to the Black community in its perpetuation of stereotypes often involved in crime. So that's where the term came from. Thank you, Minister Bill. Go ahead, Shango, and then Brother Damani.
What I think is interesting to me is the NAACP. On the one hand, they looked at Amos and Andy and it was very anti them, and they got Amos and Andy kicked off TV. And then let's fast forward to when In Living Color came out, then they had nothing to say. So at times, the NAACP is a very confusing organization to me in terms of how they look at films. That's all.
All right, thank you. Brother Damani, go ahead.
That was a very good conversation going on. I know that the film producers, I learned, later on that the film producers are the culture narratives. And Europeans are always trying to control the culture because culture shapes the psychology and the emotions of the people. And so, I know Brother Keating talks about social engineering. And so, Dr. Amos Wilson talking about what is going to be the mentality of Black people under our system. And so putting things in context, a lot of the Black exploitation movies of the 70s come after the Black Power movement, come after the Civil Rights movement. The Black Panthers one that transformed the youth mentality from a survival mentality to a revolutionary mentality. And so here comes the so-called Black exploitation of films to show, like you should show criminality, follow that narrative of Black criminality. This is a very interesting subject. I know socialization also, Dr. Amos Wilson, you can put it right there for me, Stacey. Dr. Amos Wilson talks about, in his book, The Maroon Within Us, he talks about socialization.
Okay.
And socialization refers to a process of assuming responsibility for one's culture. He talks about schooling just being common content. Education refers to education, he said, refers to the ability of the learner to be able to interpret his reality. And he goes on for schooling, education, then he gets down to socialization. He talks about refers to ability of assuming responsibility for one's ethnic group. And so we was never taught to assume responsibility for one's ethnic group based on our history and our shared culture. And so he also talks about community socialization is a prerequisite. And so I know the movies are a mind-shaping apparatus. Movies shape the mentality of children that watching movies, the music. All this is a part of the social engineering. So we got to get control of the somehow we got to get control of the thought-shaping apparatus if we're going to move forward in a positive way. Otherwise, Hollywood is doing a good job controlling the mindset of our young people. And I'm very troubled too. I'm gonna end it with this. I'm very troubled too by all the Black youth, the murders, the Black on Black crime, the shooting. Our Black youth are doing a lot of shooting each other lately. And that's very troubling. And so we really got to get to the bottom of what's causing us to shoot and kill each other. I ain't worried about white supremacy anymore. I'm worried about, like Akita say, he worried about his 3 daughters getting killed by other Black men. Black men, as young Black youth is off the hook. And we got to come real. We got to be real about that. Anyway, thank you.
Ashe, I agree. I agree.
Go ahead, Sugar D. You have.
Well, we need to talk. We need to get back to now. Our ancestors taught us how to deal with these kind of things because they've been through it. Because we are going backwards. Let's face it. We're going backwards. We're going backwards in education. There, stuff is happening, and we need to grab a hold. And we need to have our own stuff. We're gonna have to do something, and we're gonna have to do it with the children. We're gonna have to be. It's gonna have to do with the children because our children are being stolen from us. Okay, we don't have affirmative action anymore. Okay, guess what? Our children are still gonna be. Our Black colleges need to people as with our Black colleges need to step up. We need to be able to grab our children and grab hold of them and have them there and do what we need to do. Some of the colleges aren't giving, and I'm not talking against our Black people. I'm talking about we need to bring it up. We need to bring stuff up. We need to be able to not let our Black students go to the white colleges because they got full scholarship. What we talking about our smart Black students, because that's who's gonna get in, the smart ones, basically, because there's not gonna be any more affirmative action. So our reaction need to be, what are we gonna do as a people to help our people? We're gonna be in the back rooms. We're gonna be teaching our children the Black history because they're trying to wipe that out, period. Our ancestors have been through this. We need to go back and look and see, how can we save our people? And we're gonna have to start with the youth. We got to do something. We need to do something. Now, Tyler Perry has that TV, now BET. Let's see what we're gonna see what he puts on it, but we see what he puts out too. Let's just be real with it. We're gonna have to do something. And I think WOSE as a community has already started doing so. When they had Elliot Day, that is something that started, but we're gonna have to do more. I'm with you, brother. What is it? I want to say your name right. Shamu, I am with you. We got to take control. That TV is something. Those video games, I'm telling you, they've chipped our children. They have chipped them with the phone, and we help chip them. We give it to them. I'm guilty, myself. I'm guilty. And you look around, and what are our children doing? They're on those things. We got to pull them out. We got to get them outside. We got to get them back, get that melanin working. Y'all know how that melanin is. Y'all know that melanin is powerful, and we need to get back to it. We need to go back. Okay, I'm done.
No, thank you. It's a very explosive topic. I had no idea. I woke up at 4 a.m. and this is how, this is how it evolved. Go ahead, Minister Ahmadi.
Yeah, you touched the live wire. So I can be real brief too. I think that it's two things that will help us in moving forward: awareness, cultural awareness, but then we got to look at things from an economic perspective, because power through this country flows through economics. And so my thing is, I'm always saying, seek ownership and control. So if we just got to own and control more of our community and the things that affect our community, then we can work on the fine tuning of, getting things right and getting our message in order. But until we have ownership and control, we'll always be dancing by somebody else's music. And so I just want to interject this idea that as we're dealing with whatever we're dealing with, look at it through the economics that's involved in it. And I think that'll help you to understand the power the power aspects that we must seize in order to be able to actually protect ourselves and to actually push our agenda. But if we don't have the economics and the power, then we're always subject to what the other folks want us to do, and they'll always put us second.
All right. So many wise sayings tonight. I'm always honored to be in I know that sounds like I'm pandering, but I'm always honored to be in your midst. You all have a lot of wise, let me just say, wisdom within you, and so many things that you've said. When I put up that picture, my son was telling me he was going to send me a video that said that Black people saved the company Cadillac, and by us buying Cadillacs, because for a while they weren't allowing us to buy Cadillacs, and then the Depression hit, And then they were encouraging us, and it was because their encouragement that saved the Cadillac company, Cadillac. And I would venture to say that Blaxploitation movie probably before this came out, movies were in a lull. They were losing money, because if you go and study the economics, okay, you know, a movie, somebody uses 500,000, takes $500,000, which was a lot of money in 1972, in the 70s, and wind up making 15 million from it. That you know, and there were a lot of Blaxploitation movies. Let me just go to this. I found this list. I see your hands, Zarita. I'm gonna get to you. I found this list. Look at this. Look at all the movies. I went to Wikipedia, and look at all the movies. All of these movies that came out. Some actually in the 80s. These are all Black Klansmen. Black Belt Jones, remember that one? Black Caesar. Black Dynamite. Black Dynamite. Have you seen Black Dynamite? The Black Godfather. All these movies. Black Panther, that was a great movie. That made a lot of money. Black Samson, Black Samurai. All of these, Blackenstein. Haven't seen that one. Brotherhood of Death. Buck and the Preacher. I remember there was a minister there was a church across the street from my house, and the minister there, the pastor there was a man by the name of Reverend Grissom, and Reverend Grissom had worked with Dr. King, and you know, he was just a really kind of like a pillar in our community. And I remember him coming over to our house for dinner one night, and Reverend Grissom said he felt so empowered. Now, Reverend Grissom wasn't a revolutionary, but he said he felt so empowered when Harry Belafonte opened up his Bible and pulled out that big gun.
And Buck and the Preacher, huh?
Cleopatra Jones, that was a good one. Coffee, Cool Breeze, Cooley High. That's the movie I was trying to think of. Cooley High. The first time I saw a libation poured was at the graveside. No, not at the graveside, where the brothers were on the corner and they poured out and they say, "This is for the brothers who aren't here." That was the first time I saw a libation. I was 14 years old. Cornbread Earl and Me is talking about police brutality. Cotton Comes to Harlem, that was another one. I mean, Detroit 9000, I didn't see that one. Dolomite, I never liked Rudy Ray Moore. You know, he was awful. Drum, Ken Norton. So all these movies. Look at all these movies. Black movie. Harder They Come, that's the Jamaican one. Jimmy Cliff. JD's Revenge, that was a good movie that I really didn't see, but I always heard about. The Last Dragon came out in '85. Vanity was in that movie, and I can't think of the brother's name. That was done by Motown, I believe. Let's Do It Again. All those movies. Let's Do It Again, and of course the Mac. That was I really think that hurt us. And all these penitentiary movies. Return of Superfly, The River Niger. Look at all these movies. Shaft in Africa, Shaft's Big Score, She Baby, Slaughter. I think that was Jim Brown. All these movies. Superfly, another one that really messed us up. And somebody was talking about Sweet Back. I always heard about Sweet Sweetback, never saw it. See these, look at all those movies. Vampire Brook, I really like Vampire in Brooklyn, I have to say. Eddie cracks me up. You know, if I see a movie, it's Eddie's in it, I'm gonna watch it. He's funny. All right. Boy, I had no idea that this would be such an explosive topic. Let's continue on. We got about 15 minutes left. So yeah, I need to see this video that Sister Judy sent me. So maybe you might want to see it. You all might want to look at it. Let's see if I can get this a little bit. You might want to, you know, the real reason behind Blaxploitation. Maybe we all should see that, and you know, then come back when we're going to schedule Kitty to talk about it. Also, Richard Roundtree just had a birthday. He's 81. Richard Roundtree is 81. And after Shaft came out, he actually had a series. It was on CBS.
Yeah.
And he was he a fireman? I can't remember. And Sheila Frazier, who starred in Superfly, was his wife. That was a pretty good little series that they had. But anyway, he did a lot of, I mean, he was a handsome guy, great leading man, and you know, Isaac Hayes's Shaft. I mean, if you heard it now, you'd start tapping your feet.
Imhotep, did he change his name, Richard Roundtree? I see that name, female.
I think, hey, Bobby, I think this is somebody that posted this. I don't think that this is his new name, but I could be wrong. I think I saw somebody post this. I grabbed it and I said, here, let me put it in this PowerPoint, you know, for tonight. But Femi Ajibode, I don't think that's his name. I think that's the person who posted this. All right. And Robert Townsend, Sister Judy, I did get this video. So let's kind of close out with what Robert Townsend was saying about how he made his movie.
That movie is brilliant. It still stands up today. My social media grandmaster, TJ Jefferson, you watched it just last night, correct?
Last night when I got the email that Robert was coming on, you know, I was just like, I gotta watch Hollywood Shuffle for the 285th time.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Well, thank you so much. No, that
thank
was my
you.
very first movie, The Journey About Hollywood. Keenan and I were talking about it the other day.
Yeah.
Because, you know, people are still, you know, people still quote it, and actors, you know, when they go to auditions now, every now and then I'll see it on Instagram where somebody goes, I ain't be got no weapon, or we can eat dog. And you go like, oh Lord, you know.
I ain't be got no weapon.
I ain't be got no weapon.
Jimmy.
Now that is sneaking in the movies is fantastic. You gave my friends and I literally for years after that film, Robert, gave movies the finger. We would look at each other and like we wouldn't even say whether we liked the movie or not. We're watching a movie and we're like, we didn't even say, do you like this? Do you not? We would just like show a finger to the movie, to the TV screen or whatever, and that would say. So what is the genesis of that movie, Robert? Like, what was it truly born out of your inability to get the roles that you wanted? Is that true? Would that be the case?
Well, because at that time, you know, we're talking 1980, 82, 83, 84. Mm-hmm. You know, Keenan and I were having all these bad auditions. You know, I had my first audition for a pimp. I told my mother, and she goes, be the best pimp you can be. You know, and the whole church was praying for me. Let's pray that he gets the role of Silky. So it was like, you know, it was like bizarre. And so Keenan and I, rather than complain, we said, let's make our own movie. And that's what we did. And that's how Hollywood Shuffle came about. Everything in that film really happened, you know, in terms of the bad auditions and all of that, the casting directors, the way they talked to us. So it was all, you know, based on our lives.
So was there, in fact, a bat in your house? Is that what you're saying? There was a bat? at some point in your life, Robert?
No. When we would audition, they would have characters like, this brother is living in the attic and he won't leave, and and they would always have like, say, hey, baby, I just need to get some light. And they would always have a character like that. And so Keenan and I said, man, we got to have a bat in the house. They got to have a black bat living with a white family. So that's how, because we would audition for stuff like that all the time.
Batty, batty, batty.
Batty, batty, batty. What's all this noise?
TJ, go ahead and ask the man a question. I know you'd like to.
Well, Robert, I think I've heard you discuss this in previous interviews, but the process that you went through to make Hollywood Shuffle, could you tell us a little bit about that?
So let me say, Hollywood Shuffle was my first movie. So I'm writing it with Keenan, I'm directing, I'm producing, I'm starring it, and I'm the only investor. So I had saved $60,000, and then I went through it in a second, and I went on the road to do stand-up comedy for 2 weeks. And when I came back, I had a stack of credit cards. And so this is how I became, part legend in Hollywood. I charged the movie on credit cards. I got $40,000 on credit cards, and I charged the last part of the film, wardrobe, credit cards for gas, paint supplies, food, and then that's how I finished the film. And then when I sold it to the Samuel Goldwyn Company, I said, hey, man, can I get my check? I got to pay off these credit cards. He says, what? And I said, I charged it. And then he said, we got to tell the whole world. And I didn't want to tell anybody because I said they'll think the movie is cheap. But then that became the hook for the film because people were like, this is the guy that made a whole movie using a credit card.
Wow, and this is before they even got points and miles for your card, too, right?
Exactly. I was just, it's so funny. I was flying. I just finished shooting The Wonder Years for ABC.
Yes.
And I was flying, and I was looking at my miles, and I'm about to hit 2 million miles on one of the carriers, and I was like, wow. So anyway, I was thinking about that.
What's your favorite stand-up gig? Take me back in the day, or anything in between, or who you did a gig. You mentioned Keenan. It's Keenan Ivory Wayans. You've mentioned many times. My favorite. I was performing at the Improv in New York City, and while I'm on stage, Rodney Dangerfield comes in, and in the back I hear Rodney laughing. And so then when I come off stage, I was like, who the hell is laughing? But he was laughing at my set. And so then he goes, I'm Rodney Dangerfield. I had met him before, but he didn't really know me. And he goes, I'm doing a comedy special. I want you to do the comedy special for me, And it ended up being me, Jerry Seinfeld, Roseanne Barr, and a comedian named Bob Nelson. And that was my first comedy special. No kidding. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.
Okay. I liked Hollywood Shuffle too. When Hollywood Shuffle came out, it was a bunch of Wose people, and we went. It was at this theater in Berkeley on Gilman called the Rialto, and I remember Jaruba being there, and that we just roared. That each skit was just hilarious. I thought it was great. Let's see. Thank you, Sister Tony, for giving me that. I would like to play it, but sometimes when I just play just straight YouTube videos, they're kind of choppy, and I would need to convert it to an MP4. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. Thank you though for posting that. I'm going to look at that. All right. Sisters and brothers, we have about 8 minutes, and we have really riled you up about about this topic, and had no idea it would be so explosive. I'm glad though that we did it. What can I say? You guys are great, and that obviously it's something that we needed to talk about. It's obviously yes. Yes, yes, I do. Yes, I do. Someone just asked me a question. Yes, I do. All right. So, Brother Damani, what'd you do for your birthday? You're muted. You're muted.
I didn't do nothing, just relax and went out, had some coffee with a friend, and that's about it.
Cool. Yeah, those are sometimes the best. Tomorrow's Doris's birthday.
Oh, okay. That's great.
Yeah,
Tell her happy birthday.
yeah, I will. I will.
Birthday, Mama.
Minister Imhotep, did you ever tell us your idea on Blaxploitation?
You know,
We all shared our thoughts about it, but I don't remember you sharing yours.
my thing was my thing is the Mac and Superfly were movies that really messed us up. After Superfly came out, we went from the natural to what we started calling the Lord Jesus. We had started pressing, right? You know, but the music was great. Of course, it's great. Curtis Mayfield, but when Curtis Mayfield was in The Impressions, you know, he had some positive songs, but okay, if you go and get that soundtrack now, you will love every song that's on there, but it's not positive, you know. And the same thing with Willie Hutch. I think that was the only album he made, or the only one that I made. You know, it was a soundtrack for the Mac, but it messed up a lot of people. So that was my you know, and the person that I was arguing with, they were like, no, the movies didn't do that. People were weak-minded anyway. No, I don't agree with that. My position is that these things all work in conjunction to shape people's mind. Just now, this is a interesting fact that I saw about a movie. So that movie, Clan, no, it's what's the movie? It's a racist movie, and it came out in the Birth of a Nation. So it's a movie about the Klan. And do you know that the Klan never burned crosses until after that movie came out, because it was in that movie, and then they started burning crosses? You know, movies affect people. When those Bruce Lee movies came out, after that, kids all up and down the street was doing kung fu and karate and nunchuk things. You know, movies affect people. They do, and it's just like anything. Music affects people. It's just like anything. You can use it for positive, or you can use it for negative. And so my point was, hey, the Mac and Superfly, you know, 72, 73, that's what changed a lot of people. People say, what happened to the 60s? It was the 70s. And the 70s was the music and the movies. That's my position.
I agree with that. Superfly,
All right.
messed us up. Superfly, yeah, that messed us up.
Yeah, it did. It totally did. But he did beat up the police. You know.
I like that part, right?
Good part. Yeah. He did beat up the police.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that you got to take the good with the bad.
And in the Mac, Goldie's brother, Max Julian, the guy that played Max Julian's brother, was Roger Mosley. He was the revolutionary. And he choked the police to death at the end of the movie. You know, so okay, that was the positive part. But the other, you know.
Right. Thank you, brother. I just wanted to hear your analysis.
Could I say something? Could I add something, Minister Imhotep? I missed so much of it. I still had to leave. But I can't raise my hand on my phone. I don't know how to do it. But I just wanted to say they definitely had a negative effect on people, because even I think I told you in my text message, I could have a testament, because in high school, I was a majorette and I was used to wearing short stuff, but I wore jackets like Cleopatra Jones, and people called me Hollywood, and and it was all. When I look back on it, I didn't have to look that far back, but it was because of those movies. Those were like my role models. The women, Coffee and Cleopatra Jones. I wanted to be just like them, and I was already a kind of a rebel and a revolutionary type person. So, but that was, excuse me, that's what really prompted me to, made me come to the realization of how powerful those movies are, those images, the Black exploitation films, because of how they affected me.
Yes, those really affect people, and my friends, classmates, male and female, greatly affected by those. Okay, and that's something that I know. It's not necessarily that I read this article or anything. That's something that I know. That works.
Well, the metaphysical principle, that the last thing I'm going to say is, the power that got you into the problem is the same power that can get you out of it. So we can channel this same energy and make it work for us as opposed to work against us.
Well, thank you, brother. I want to say this. I'm not just saying because Minister Amadi is one of the most positive people that you're ever going to meet. Alicia agrees with me.
Hey, I just like to say, there's a lot of positive documentaries over the years. John Henry Clark documentaries,
yes,
The Great and Mighty Walk. There's a lot of documentaries that counter all the negatives too, and we just got to get more, push our documentaries out there. There's a whole list of documentaries on our history, on our culture. Even the what was the latest one? The brother made 5 in a series.
Oh yeah, I can't think of it either. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Anyway, the last series of black documentaries.
It's Hidden Colors.
Hidden Colors, yeah, Hidden Colors series.
Yes.
Yeah. So all that stuff has counter. That's the only thing we can do right now to counter Hollywood, is show our positive documentary.
Good though is we can make movies now ourselves, and they can be high quality, and you don't have to spend a lot of money.